Well, what a different time. The music was exciting. You were playing. There was work there. But then you kind of got involved into management. What happened with the business, the two-wall? What's the two-wall concept
first of all,
Robert Goulet?
I got into the agency business.
Yeah.
Okay, and I started booking acts. And I wound up having 56 or 76 bands working at one time. I had, at any particular time, I had 15 bands in Las Vegas at different hotels. Of course, Las Vegas had grown quite a bit then. So,
so were you still drumming at the time?
No, I couldn't. I was not drumming. I was very busy playing, so I was not drumming. However, the story goes on, and I did start later on to come back.
Right.
All right, so I'm booking all these hotels, and the entertainment directors kind of trusted me because you're only as good as your last act.
Yeah.
So I made sure that I knew every single room, and I knew exactly what to provide for them. And the lounges were very, very big at the time. I mean, there were stars, Jackie Green, Don Rickles. A lot of stars were working in the lounges.
Yeah.
Okay, I started booking name acts like Sandler and Young, Connie Stevens, Eddie Fisher, the Mills Brothers.
Robert Goulet was
Robert Goulet.
Yeah.
I'll tell you a little story about Robert Goulet.
Yeah. But these were big. These are big stars.
Tony Bennett. Yeah.
Huge.
Well, I had the opportunity because I knew the entertainment directors, and I was able to provide, whatever they would need, and I was pretty good in selling.
Yeah.
I learned how to, to sell, and I dealt in a very honest manner. I wasn't looking for commissions. I was looking first to provide them with the very best entertainment. On the Robert Goulet thing, the Dunes, I got to know Jerry Conte very well, the entertainment director, and he was a kind of a jazz buff. He loved jazz players, so we'd go around town, and I was still, I would play. Come on, Bobby, sit in. So I would sit in with different jazz groups, and we became very good friends. So when it came time to, Robert Goulet had been working for the Howard Hughes Corporation. But I worked out a thing where, like, some of the hotels have a four-wall where the entertainer has to pay for everything, for the musicians, for the culinary, stagehands, and the publicity and everything.
So they pay the entertainer, and they have to then pay everything else.
That's right.
Out of that, okay.
Yes.
And that's what a four-wall is, okay.
No, the four-wall is that they don't pay the entertainer. There's no guarantee.
Oh,
they only work on a percentage basis.
So whenever they come in for that,
50-50.
Interesting.
50-50 percentage. So on a two-wall, Dom, the act doesn't have to pay for stagehands, culinary, publicity, anything, and they split 50-50.
Right.
So I talked Robert Goulet into that, and we opened up at the Dunes, Jerry Conte, and I had an 18-piece band. It was my band backing. I wasn't playing, but I just contracted the band with 8-string players, beautiful girls. So the engagement went very, very well. Okay, now it was a two-wall, and the two-wall is where the hotel is no guarantee, but they pay for the culinary stagehands, the musicians, and I had them put billboards up and down Sunset Boulevard. Mm-hmm. And Robert Goulet, made a big deal about it again. Well, lo and behold, it was very successful. I've got upstairs, I'm handling the line. I got Keely Smith, the 4 freshmen. I've got Sonny King, the Checkmates. I've got all the best, groups up there.
So it's amazing how the business had changed and some of the challenges. But let's talk about the business side for a second. When you got involved with the agency, you had to get an office and people working for you?
I built a building on Sahara, the Morris building. And I had a whole staff of people working, and I had 76 bands working, and that takes, I was employing 400 musicians, and I had Of course, every band had a drummer and percussion, whatever. The agency business was taken off because I was in with every hotel. And I was in with Mo Lewis at the Stardust, Davy Victorson at Caesar's Palace, Bill Miller at the Flamingo, the Rocky Centers in Frontier. Every hotel, they trusted me. And I had a wonderful rapport going with them. It was very exciting, and it was very busy. It was very busy, and I didn't play. I didn't play until I became entertainment director of a couple of hotels.
That comes into like was it the Flamingo and the International?
No, okay. At the Flamingo and International, I was booking. I had the band, the house band at the Flamingo, and Bill Miller was the entertainment director. So the International was going to be opening up. And he said, Bobby, I want you to be the musical director of the lounge.
So Bill Miller was just the
entertainment director.
Just of that hotel?
Of the Flamingo.
Right, okay.
But the Flamingo owned the International, too.
Right, okay.
So they were going into... So the International was being built. It was about to open. And he said, I'd like you to be the orchestra leader for the lounge band. I said, who's going to be the orchestra leader for the main showroom? He says, Harry James. I said, oh my God, that's wonderful. You couldn't do any better.
Yeah.
So anyhow, 2 weeks before prior opening, Harry James reneged. And Bill Miller called me and said, Bobby, you're the musical director for the showroom too. I said, okay, I'm like saying, oh my God,
Did they negotiate more money? Was there a salary change from what you were doing?
No. So here's what occurred. The lounge. I said, Bill, we can't call it a lounge. I said, what do you suggest? I said, look, we're going to have Peggy Lee coming in, the Mills Brothers, Frankie Lane, K-Star. We're going to have big stars come in. They don't want to work in the lounge. Yeah. He said, what do you suggest? I said, let's call it a casino theater. He says, wonderful, wonderful. So we called it a casino theater, and I became musical director of the entire thing, including the show Hair, that Broadway show came in. We had another room, which is another story, But then I said, well, who do you have opening up in the showroom? He said, well, Barbra Streisand will be our first act. Then Elvis Presley, and many, many acts after that. We opened up with Streisand. Marty Ehrlichman was her manager, and that went very well. And but meanwhile, Colonel Parker, Bill Miller called me and said, Colonel Parker would like to meet with you.
Colonel Parker was Elvis's
manager.
Correct, okay.
So I met with Colonel Parker. I said, Bobby, I know you're musical director and all that. I'm making good money, musical director, both hotels.
Yeah.
He said, but I want you to be personal conductor for Elvis Presley. I says, and don't worry about it. Mr. Kirk Kerkorian, the owner, and Bill Miller and Alex Schufe, the president, already gave permission that you could take off at any time to help Elvis Presley put his show together.
Right.
So I accepted the job, of course. He gave me a figure. It was a nice figure. So I was making money from Elvis, from the musical director, and I still had bands going. It's something like you, Don. You're very diversified, and you don't stop at one little thing.
Absolutely, we're spinning plates all the way around.
Oh my God,
for sure.
yeah. So he said, "I want you to go out to Hollywood, to Colonel Parker."
Yeah,
So
Hollywood Hills.
they fly me to Hollywood. RCA Studios and RKO. Not RCA Studios.
MGM Studios and RCA Records, right?
Yes, and RCA Records.
Right.
Well, I come in there, I'm driven in there, and Colonel Parker says, I want you to sit at the head of the table. I said, no, I can't. That's too much of an honor for me. I can't sit at. He said, no, I insist. You're the guest of honor, and you sit at the front. So I'm sitting on the front part of this great, gigantic table. There's executives from RCA, from RKO, the biggest executives. And Elvis is sitting on my left, Colonel Parker is sitting on my right. I'm sitting in the middle. I said, my God, how did I wind up here? This is unbelievable. So we have lunch. They take me into the room, show me all of Elvis's, gold and platinum records and all that. And we continue to lunch, and then we drive up to his place in the Hollywood Hills in a limousine. And Elvis is in there, Colonel Parker's in there, Joe Esposito, his right-hand man. We drive up to Hollywood Hills and to his home, and it's a beautiful home and a big gate. I try to say screaming Mimis, but 200 little girly poos.
Young girls just screaming about
they're
Elvis.
Scratching away at the car. There's two dogs inside the gate, with the two Great Danes, and so we finally get in, and we proceeded, and sitting down, we relaxed, and for the next about 6 weeks or so, I don't know how long it was, about 4 to 6 weeks, we were listening to records. And every time I heard anything, or he heard, and we both got excited, like the tunes like In the Ghetto, The Wonder of You.
About what year was this?
This was 1969.
Okay.
This was 1969. And we're listening, and we're drinking Gatorade, because he didn't drink anything but Gatorade. and he's wonderful, man. Dom, I'm talking to him like I'm talking to you.
Beautiful.
Just a regular guy, and we're having fun. And he's got some of his entourage around, Of course, every word that he says, everybody breaks up, It's like big guffaws, And so this goes on for quite a while. We pick out all these wonderful tunes. Meanwhile, Barbra Streisand her engagement is ending, and we're opening. But I had all the musicians, everything set up for Barbra Streisand, so I didn't have to be there.
Right.
Just my presence was there at the beginning for the opening and all that.
Nice.
We got back to Las Vegas, and we're rehearsing, the show. Now we had, you want to know how many people we had on stage? I thought that was going to be the next
Absolutely.
question.
What was the show like?
Okay. We had the Sweet Inspirations, the Imperials. He had his own backup group. I had 5 saxes, 10 brass, 5 rhythm, and about 22 string. We had 60 people on stage.
Unbelievable.
60 people.
Do you remember who the drummer was?
Ronnie Tutt.
Ronnie Tutt,
Yeah,
man.
yeah,
Oh,
Ronnie Tutt.
beautiful guy. Wow.
James Burton on guitar.
Wow.
A wonderful bunch of guys. And I played a little percussion. When I got the band started, I would play some like conga type of thing,
Yeah.
to add a little bit to the rhythm section. Prior to our opening, we're going towards the stage. Kurt Kerkorian asked me to be a host. He asked me to greet the people. And he said, go down to my tailor and get a tuxedo made. And I want you to look real good. I want you to greet the people and tell them welcome in behalf of Mr. Kerkorian. So I did that, and there was many stars. Cary Grant, every star in the world. Dom, every recording star, every movie star, every star of...
They all came to this.
They all came for the opening, and it was a calm show. So I said, Elvis, Elvis, we're walking towards the stage. He said, Bobby, who's out there? I said, you wouldn't believe. I said, there's every star in the world, Elvis. He said, God, I'm a little nervous, I'm a little nervous. I said, well, don't be nervous, man. Just think of everybody in the audience with no clothes on. And I went a little further, but I don't want to repeat it here, you know. Anyhow, we do C.C. Ryder, you know, opening, and he gives me this kind of a thing. You
Nice.
know? And he wasn't nervous anymore. So it was
That's beautiful.
straight ahead, and my dressing room was next to his. And we would I would go through a casino, and little girls would, "Oh, you Bobby Morris, usually." I said, "Yeah." I said, "Oh, I would give anything to meet Elvis."
Oh,
you know?
I'm sure you heard that a lot. Yeah, I'm sure you heard that a lot.
I said, "If you'd like," I said, "I don't know if he'll come into my dressing room. Sometimes he does. So if you want to take a chance, I'll." So I sometimes brought 5 or 6 of them backstage. And Elvis liked to hang around my dressing room because in his there was people like Tom Jones and Engelbert Humperdinck, and everybody scratching away at him. He never got peace.
Yeah.
So in mine there was nobody, you know, except now these girls, you know. So he'd come. I was sharing with Sammy Shore, the comic. So he'd come in, and I'd say, "Girls, this is Elvis Presley." And inevitably 2 or 3 of them would faint.
Oh my gosh, what an amazing time.
It was just amazing.
But here you
And
were.
then we had parties upstairs. He had a 6-bedroom suite upstairs and parties. And in one party, Joe Esposito was his birthday. And so
Who was Joe Esposito?
Joe Esposito was his road manager.
Okay.
He just passed away, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But he had been with him in the military. And so they were like very close friends.
Yeah.
So he was with him in the military. Anyhow, this was his birthday, and they made this enormous cake. So we're up there, you know, there's a whole bunch of people, and this 7-layer chocolate cake with all the candles, you know. Elvis had kind of a sense of humor that was sometimes on the verge of like being very naughty, you know. So as Joe is blowing out the candles, Elvis, "Blow out the candles." He pushes Joe's face right into the cake, and I was looking forward to having a piece of that cake. I said, "Oh my God, 7-layer cake," you know. There was parties every night, and the engagement. It was probably, I had been with many people prior to that.
Yeah.
And I had prior to that I had worked with the Relief then years ago. So I played for every star. Never in my life have I seen any kind of a reaction in my life as how Elvis, his acclaim, his presence,
Absolutely. Well,
how the audience just absolutely like loved him. It was, from what I understand, it was the biggest happening in the history of show business, according to all the columnists and worldwide columnists from all over the world.
Yeah.
And it was the biggest happening in show business. And I remember leaving, you know, a show, and I was fortunate enough to have a Fleetwood Brom Cadillac, a very long, beautiful, brand new, you know. And I worked out a thing with the bellhops, with the car hops, you know, to park my car. I gave them a certain amount of money every month. I said, as soon as I come in, you know, there's 1,000 people waiting for the cars, you know, please bring my car.
Yeah.
So they would, and all these people, Elvis's conductor, that's Elvis's conductor. Look, it was a big deal, you know.
Well, that was an amazing time because here you are. Listen, the Elvis phenomena is still being studied, which is an amazing career that he had. And the fact that you were there backstage, on stage, and right in the thick of it, buddy, is really a powerful part of musical history. Now, you went on,
It was very exciting.
Incredible.
I mean, as exciting as everything else that I had experienced, this possibly was the height of excitement.
Yeah.
This was ultimate height.
Incredible. I'm sure there are tons of pictures that you have of you and Elvis, as I've seen some of them already.
I've got to
Beautiful.
tell you something that it might find interesting. You know, Elvis was very giving. He was a wonderful giving person.
Yeah.
He's wearing this ring, a beautiful 4-carat, gold ring. And all I happen to say is, God, that's a beautiful ring, Elvis. He took it off and gave it to me. He took it off, gave it to me, plus, watches with inscriptions of to Bobby from Squirrely EP. He called himself Squirrely, and he called my band Bobby Morrison the Woolly Boogers. I guess that was an expression, a Southern expression, and he called himself Squirrely.
We go on. I mean, there are certain, you were the entertainment director at the Bourbon Street Hotel in Las Vegas.
Yes.
And Al Hirt, the great,
Yes.
New Orleans Southern entertainer.
Oh, wonderful. Thank you for asking that, mentioning that.
What was that like?
Okay. I'm entertainment director at Bourbon Street Hotel, but we're going to have a grand opening. Yeah. And we're going to have the mayor and the governor and all that. And he said, Bobby, the general manager, Bobby, you got to get somebody of stature.
Yeah.
So I had played with Al Hirt in New Orleans and Pete Fountain. At one time, it was kind of my second home.
Yeah.
And I said, well, I'll call Al Hirt. So I called Al Hirt in New Orleans. I said, Al, this is very special, okay? I said, look, we'll give you $10,000 for the night and fly you up in suite, He said, okay, great, when is it by? Whatever. He calls me up a couple of days later, prior to the opening. He says, Bobby, I won $20,000. I says, Al, do you accept the $10,000? I says, it's only 110-seater for God. It's a small lounge, man. Yeah. But so we can't do that. So anyhow, I had to cancel him. So the management and the owner of the hotel said, Bobby, we knew you played drums. Why don't you get something going for the opening? So I formed a New Orleans jazz band because I was so involved with New Orleans.
Yeah.
So I formed a New Orleans jazz band, and it was comprised of trombone, Jim Hunziker on trombone, Tom Elin on trumpet, Steve Johnson on saxophone, Bob Saxon, bass, Billy Stevenson on piano. The best players in Las Vegas, they were doubling. They were working house bands with Frank Sinatra, backing all the big stars.
Yeah.
So we opened up, and we did the opening, and it went very well. And the management said, listen, why don't you just stay on, And I said, what do you mean by stay on? He said, well, work here with the band. We could make it into an attraction, the New Orleans Jazz Band. So I did. And I knew that they were able to do it because their job started at 8 o'clock and we were finished at 7. It was an afternoon thing, going from 4 o'clock to 7 o'clock. And we built up an enormous following. Yeah. It became the happening. So that, he says, well, try it for a couple of weeks. So that couple of weeks lasted 5 years. And it became the happening in Las Vegas.
That is amazing. That's amazing, amazing. Now we have just a few more minutes, but I want to get a couple more things in. A dear friend of mine is Steve Smith, phenomenal drummer with the band Journey and his band Vital Information.
Yes, Vital Information.
Beautiful player, dedicated musician at such a high level. How did you meet Steve?
Okay, Mike Varney, who was kind of a musical director at the Bohemian Club in San Francisco, and who was producer of some of Steve's recordings, called me up and said, Bobby, Steve Smith Group and Vital Information are coming to the Marriott, in town, and I'd like to invite you. Yeah. So I came out and I saw the group was wonderful. And Steve, on top of playing a marvelous player, he spoke so eloquently and all that. So anyhow, Steve and I became friends. And when he was at the appearing at the NAMM, not appearing, but he was at the NAMM show. I never heard of the NAMM. He invited me to come out and hang out with him. So I came out and I couldn't get in, so he said, "Listen, I'll be on my cell phone. You be on your cell phone, and I'll walk down the street, and you walk down the street towards me, and we'll talk to each other." I said, "Steve, are you there?" Say, "Yeah, I'm here, almost a block away." "Oh, are you?" "I'm a half a block away." So we finally got in, and he got me in, and a lot of the people at the NAMM show knew me.
Yeah.
A lot of the drummers and Dave Weckl and
Absolutely.
a lot of good players.
Yeah.
And so Steve and I became friends. He's a wonderful, wonderful player and so diversified and such a mind.
Oh, he's
such a beautiful mind.
Brilliant at many levels. Yeah.
So when Steve came to Las Vegas on a few occasions doing some clinics, he invited me to join him, you know.
Nice.
So I would come in and they introduced me, and we, you know, and I'd be at the clinic and observing everything that he was doing. And he was a marvelous clinician. I just loved the way he approached his approach.
Yeah.
And talking about this one time he had this 15/4 time thing going, you know. So explaining what 15/4 time. I mean, he took music to another level.
Absolutely.
He's what he, you know, from jazz to rock to jazz fusion.
Yeah.
Now, jazz fusion, I was always into modern jazz and all that, but now I said, my God, this jazz fusion I really appreciate what he was doing.
Yeah, yeah.
So I kind of got into it, and I picked up some of his approach and started doing some clinics myself.
Beautiful.
In Florida, Utah, different places.
Beautiful.
And I used a lot of his method of approach and communication. He's a great communicator.
Absolutely.
And Steve and Daniel Glass were doing this book. I was honored for them to ask me and to be in the book. And I wound up on the cover in the first chapter. And then Daniel Glass was doing this thing on rhythm and blues. I'm in that.
Absolutely. I'm familiar with that, which is fantastic.
But the most wonderful thing is meeting this lady, Jules Follett, who's running, and I get a call one night, and it's Jules Follett. She says, "Bobby, we'd like to take some pictures of you." And a drummer by the name of David Bronson introduced us. And he said, David Bronson, he was with the Rogers Brothers, and he introduced us. And
I remember this, yeah.
He would like me to. Anyhow, she came to my home and took some pictures, and it was wonderful. I didn't think too much of it at the time. I said, "Oh, that's wonderful," but you know that. But all of a sudden, like months came later, and I get a book in the mail, Sticks and Skins.
It's fantastic.
And
a coffee table type book. It's huge, with over 500 drummers in there, which you're in there.
Yes.
Absolutely.
And I get this book. I says, my God, this is marvelous. A beautiful book. She is a wonderful lady. Just
Absolutely.
a wonderful lady.
And that book, just so you know, Bobby, that book
Yes.
is in the Smithsonian Institute,
Smithsonian.
Rock and Roll Hall of Fame,
Yes.
the Country Music Hall of Fame, the
Yes.
Grammy Museum. So what Jules Follett has done with this book, Sticks and Skins, has really given recognition to many, many drummers around the world.
She's marvelous.
Yeah.
Now, she flew us out to a special event.
For the class of 80.
The class of 80.
I was there for that, absolutely.
You were there?
I was there. I
Oh,
was
for
the
God's sake.
master of ceremonies for that, yes.
Oh, my God.
Absolutely.
Yeah, Daniel Glass introduced me.
Yes.
And Steve was there, Steve Smith.
Yeah.
And so Jules Follett is the most marvelous person. A lot of musicians refer to her as the
St. Jules.
St. Jules, yeah.
She's wonderful. And she organizes these interviews, the sessions. The sessions.org, O-R-G, is what happens with all these events that we do. She's the absolute vision behind all this.
And they call her Mother Teresa of drummers.
Yes, she really is.
And she is probably one of the most delightful people that I've ever met.
Absolutely.
And she is so giving and loving, and to be be so involved in the musical scene and traveling all over the world and like helping out musicians. And,
Oh, she's a dedicated, altruistic saint in our
saint.
music industry. Absolutely.
Absolute saint. I'm glad you said that, man.
She is.
Saint, Saint Jules. Saint Jules, man.
I want to end, Bobby, real quickly with. Tell me about the code that you use, the RNAPS.
The R is for rudiments.
Rudiments in practice, right?
Yeah. The N is for networking.
Networking.
In order to get ahead, you've got to network. You have to do your rudiments and practice your rudiments. Okay, and have a very good attitude.
Yeah.
The A is for the attitude.
For attitude, yeah.
And the P is for perseverance.
To never give up.
Never give up, man. And go straight ahead and don't look back, man. Right. And be strong.
Yeah.
Be strong and work hard and save your money.
Well, the S is for save your money, right?
The S is for save your money, correct. Save your money and don't give up and go straight ahead. I said, because you never know when, I said, and don't ever think that doing a day job while you're getting started is a hindrance, is going to be a hindrance or a put down to you, because anything that you do will help you in the future. So whatever you have to do to sustain, and do whatever, but to go straight ahead, be strong, and don't look back, but straight ahead, man.
Bobby, that is great advice for the next generation to hear and learn from and put into motion for them to achieve their success as you have achieved your success. Fantastic.